Saturday, September 13th is UFC Noche, Gene Silva versus Diego Lopes. Today I'm going to be going through every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim fight of Danill Donchenko versus Rodrigo Sezinando. Couldn't even take the time during the Ultimate Fighter to take headshots of him, fighting shots of him, cut him out from Google Images. $1 billion company. But we're just going to go with the silhouettes. If you've watched this season of the Ultimate Fighter, which is not bad, um, thankfully these two guys are the finalists. There were some exciting prospects on there. There were a couple that were very boring to watch. But if you've been watching this, there's a reason that Danill Donchenko is minus 238 and Rodrigo Sezinando is plus 195. Says not just based off their performances in the tough house. Donchenko has seemed to be able to push back all his opponents and put the pressure on them, go for the finish. And I don't see, at least based on the tape that we have, anything that would indicate that Sezinando has anything to offer Donchenko. Donchenko sometimes is hittable, but no one seemed to be able to stop his pressure, stop the finishing potential. If you go back, you watch some of the tough fights, he's been a problem in all of those. So I'm going to go with Donchenko. There's not much to say. There's not much tape on either of these guys. They've been on the Ultimate Fighter. It is kind of a exciting prospect fight for hardcore fans. Ukraine could use a win now too, especially right now with everything going on. So I'm going to go with Danill Donchenko. Moving on. Next fight on the card, Alice Pereira versus Montserrat Rendon. This is not Alex Pereira's sister. And she does have a record, a pro record. They haven't loaded it. They haven't loaded her headshot at all. $1 billion company, folks. Alice Pereira is not Alex Pereira's sister, but she is good. She is a good prospect. She is only 19, which kind of smells of a 36-year-old Rendon maybe checking her, but Montserrat Rendon is not good. Let me just pull up a statistic for you guys. This is Montserrat Rendon's. I don't even know if I'm saying her right. She lost a unanimous decision to Daria Zeleznikova. She beat Tamiris Vidal. I mean, what are we reading here? What? She had a canceled bout against Melissa Mullins. There's nothing to look at. This should be, an exciting new prospect in Alice Pereira, but you never know. I mean, sometimes the fraud check comes in with these up and comers, and 19-year-old could be completely outmuscled by Rendon. But I think with everything we have available, you got to go with Alice Pereira. Not a very interesting fight. Probably going to go to decision. Maybe there's a round 2 finish for Alice Pereira. Round 3 late TKO stoppage, rear naked choke. Again, Alice Pereira is good. If you go watch some of her amateur fights in Brazil on the regional scene, she is all right. So I'm going to go with Alice Pereira. The next fight, Alessandro Costa versus Alden Coria. Alden Coria making a short notice debut on the UFC Noche card. I forget who Alessandro Costa's opponent was supposed to be, but he stayed on the card. Alden Coria gets the late notice call up. The odds are minus 455 to plus 355, and that is mainly because Alden Coria sucks. You don't have much on these guys making their late notice debuts. They're not allowed to say no, so in some ways I do feel bad for Alden Coria. But he hasn't proven anything. If you look him up, he's been on the regional scene fighting absolute cans. His last fight is in Fury FC, fighting an absolute can and KO TKOing him in round 2. And you're giving him a short notice debut when he hasn't been proven. They didn't give him a contender series fight. He hasn't been in the tough house. They're giving him a fight against Alessandro Costa. And let me just pull something up here. Alessandro Costa, last win last year against Kevin Borjas. His losses are a decision to Steve Erceg, a loss to Amir Albazi all the way back in 2022. And Albazi and Erceg can fight. They're good. Erceg fought for the title. Amir Albazi is good. This guy KO TKO's Jimmy Flick, KO TKO's Kevin Borjas. He has hands. He has powers. Uh, Tough out, especially at flyweight. Tough out for Alden Coria, but there's a reason the odds are this way, and that is because it's Alden Coria and it's Alessandro Costa. You got to go Alessandro Costa here. I I predict that it'll probably be a round. Maybe we just saw this happen with Harry Hardwick last week. Okay, short notice debut. Um, you get the call up. You have to take the call up. But Alessandro Costa more than likely going to knock him out round one, round two, probably TKO finish round one, round two, work on the inside and piece him up. There's maybe Alden Coria gets another shot after his loss here in the UFC because he took this on short notice. Maybe that's the logic there, but it should be light work for Alessandro Costa, someone of his level. Moving on. Zachary Reese versus Bunk Gang. Sedriques Dumas. Body cam off Zachary Reese versus Sedriques the Felon Dumas. Sedriques Dumbass. 185. What can I say here? Very obviously, I'm rooting against Sedriques Dumas very hard in this fight. If you don't know, Sedriques Dumas is a terrible human being. And ITP MMA on YouTube made a great video about Sedriques Dumas and what he's been up to outside the octagon. And let me just share a screenshot from a now deleted tweet of Sedriques Dumas here real quick. Now, aside from the fact that Sedriques Dumas's last fight was canceled because a judge would not take off the ankle monitor in time for him to go to where he was supposed to fight. This is a clip from ITP MMA's video. Great video. Go watch it when you have a chance. On why he's rooting against Sedriques Dumas and what he's been up to outside of the cage.
A photo of his bank account that has a grand total of $13.96 in it, and even though that's pretty crazy, that is not the point of this video because the caption to his tweet goes as follows. This is a price of being a adult and paying legal actions and stuff in your life. I hate to hear people say don't struggle at a big scene. Yeah, y'all can laugh about it. I'm just giving y'all something to laugh at. So, aside
Sedriques Dumas is broke. Why is he broke? Because according to the research ITP MMA did, he has been arrested about 14 times. And we're not talking about Sedriques Dumas has unpaid parking tickets and needs a traffic lawyer. This guy has beaten, I think, 2 or 3 different baby mamas. He has pistol whipped a couple outside a bar over a dispute. Which the fact that he owns a gun, or I don't know if he legally owns a gun, is shocking in of itself. It's more worrying if Sedriques Dumas loses for the general public and has to be on the streets again, because then it's dangerous for everyone. If he wins, at the very least, he's still in the UFC and still contained. I fear for anyone who lives near Sedriques Dumas or goes on public transportation near Sedriques Dumas when he's broke, out of the UFC, and on the street. Fight-wise, Zachary Reese is good. Sedriques Dumas is okay. They both have halfway decent grappling. The odds, over 2-1 favorite, Zachary Reese. You might be tempted. I don't think this is going to be a first round stoppage. I do think Zachary Reese's striking is way better than Sedriques Dumas. I think that you're probably looking at a round 2 KO TKO from Zachary Reese on Sedriques. I just don't think he's going to have much to offer him. Sedriques Dumas is not good. He's not UFC caliber. The thing he's most famous for outside of being a felon, Bunkang is famous for going on, and they were talking about having him fight that rapper for extra on on the Adam 22 show. That's about all that Sedriques Dumas is famous for. He's not UFC caliber. He's probably going to get cut after this one. I think it's closer than some people are betting. I don't think this is a 1-0, round one Zachary Reese goes out there and smokes him performance. I think we're probably looking at a round 2, round 3 finish after he softens up Cedric to the body. But again, if Sedriques Dumas, I am rooting against him. If he loses, look up where he lives, look up his address, and stay away because he's a danger to everyone around him. Um, and if he wins, well, lawyers ain't cheap. We all know where that money's going. Moving on to the next fight on the card, which is Jesus Aguilar versus Luis Gurule. And there's some interesting lines on this card. Luis Gurule, Jesus Aguilar. Luis Gurule is a minus 218 favorite, and with Jesus Aguilar being a plus 180, both of them coming off a loss. Um, I want to point something out real quick, and let me pause and grab the stat here. Jesus Aguilar has lost to Tatsuro Terra. Is a loss to Tatsuro Terra that bad in retrospect? He beat Shannon Ross TKO, split decision Mendonca, subbed Nicoli. He's coming off a loss, a unanimous decision loss to Rafael Estevam. Now, again, is it possible we see a Gurule takedown clinic on Jesus Aguilar? Yes, but we've seen Jesus Aguilar as a pretty well-rounded fighter. He's okay over the distance pretty much everywhere. Um, Luis Gurule won a split decision against Pickaninny in Dana White's Contender Series and goes on to lose in round 2 KO TKO to Ode Osborne. Now, Ode Osborne's no slouch. Ode Osborne's a tough out for anyone, but he lost not that long ago. We're talking, 4 months ago in April 2025? Or about 5 months ago, I guess. Uh, KO TKO Ode Osborne. Tough out for anyone. But we don't have anything on Luis Gurule. Um, yes, does he have some good takedowns? Yes, did he look okay on the Contender Series win? Um, absolutely. Is it possible that Luis Gurule runs a takedown clinic on Jesus Aguilar? Yeah. But to make him a minus 218 favorite, I'm going to pick the underdog here for good money, good value underdog for Aguilar. I just think that across 3 rounds, we've seen the tape on Aguilar. We know he's pretty solid wherever he goes. He's fighting at home crowd. And we just don't know anything about Gurule. We know that he can shoot a takedown. And we know that that's pretty good, but it's not as good at flyweight. It's not as good at flyweight. Being able to shoot takedowns is not as great of a skill at flyweight as it maybe is in a higher weight class. So I'm going to go with the underdog here of Jesus Aguilar. I think that he, just across the distance, we've seen more on him. I'm thinking probably not a finish here, but maybe a 29-28 unanimous or split decision for Jesus Aguilar here. I'm going to go with the underdog there. And I know not a lot of people are, but hardcore MMA fans, I think a fair amount of them are kind of leaning Jesus here. Moving on to Tatiana Suarez, Amanda Lemos. And Tatiana Suarez is a huge favorite here at minus 440, with Amanda Lemos being a pretty good underdog. Now, couple of things. Lemos is in no way a bad underdog to take here. Can she catch Tatiana? Does Tatiana Suarez, like her husband, have some of the worst striking we've seen? Looks like a Tesla bot trying to box. For those of you that don't know, Tatiana Suarez is married or engaged to Patchy Mix. Tatiana Suarez has no striking, but unlike Patchy, unlike her husband, she actually shoots takedowns. Is the big distance difference here. And we just saw Amanda Lemos take out Amanda Lemos' last win against Yasmin Lucindo, who's, she's okay. We saw Yandaroba absolutely just run a clinic in control time and takedowns and grappling on Amanda Lemos. We saw Zhang Weili literally just bully her over 5 rounds when she fought for a title in 2023. Uh, Amanda Lemos has hands. She tends to overswing a little bit. She will wing big shots, and that's how she's gotten some of these KO TKOs or put some damage on some of these women in the other women in the division. But Tatiana Suarez, yes, coming off a loss in her title fight against Zhang Weili. Zhang Weili was able to stuff all the takedowns, and she was not able to get her to the ground. And like we said, Tatiana Suarez, like her husband, doesn't know what to do on the feet. Not a good striker. Is Amanda Lemos an okay underdog to take for the value as far as maybe catching her coming in? Yeah. But I'm not betting against the Tatiana Suarez and Amanda Lemos. I think that she's going to run a takedown clinic. I think she's going to just, even if she can't fully get the takedown, which I think she will be able to against Lemos, I think that she will be bigger than her, more physically strong in the octagon. I think she'll be able to, at the very least, hold her up against the side because that's how a lot of these women's fights go. Hold a clench fest up against. We're not gonna probably. I would imagine that unless Amanda Lemos catches her coming in, we're not gonna see a finish in this fight. We're probably gonna see a um, clench fest, if not a smother fest on top. Tatiana Suarez is, I'll give her credit, she is better than Patchy Mix. She's the better fighter out of the two comparatively, at least based off what we've seen so far. We say that, but Patchy Mix was a champion in Bellator, but how much does that really mean? Um, she has a reach advantage, so I think Amanda Lemos is going to be swinging um, shots to try and catch her. And honestly, I think that opens up a little bit more grappling, a little bit more potential for Tatiana to get the takedown there. Amanda Lemos also, as opposed to Zhang Weili, we've seen her when she goes for the takedown defense, she tends to jump guillotine, which again, it could catch Tatiana Suarez. It could catch Suarez coming in with a guillotine, but I honestly, the same as the winging shots, I think that that's going to open up her more for the takedown. I think this is a 30-27 performance from Tatiana Suarez. We don't have to worry about gas tank as much in a 3-round fight. I think this is the bounce back fight against a decent opponent here. Moving on, the next fight on the card, Claudio Puelles versus Joaquim Silva. I will throw a caveat in there, or a disclaimer in there. This is probably, there's 2 fights on the card that are probably as close to 50-50 as you're going to get on the entire card. This is one of them. Claudio Puelles, Joaquim Silva. Now, on the side of Puelles, he's got a good ground game. He's got a very good heel hook game from what we've seen. Silva, a lot of power, explosivity, speed, right? Um, Claudio Puelles, if we pull it up here, is coming off of a loss to Faraz Ziam and a loss to Dan Hooker. Um, but again, why are we, you know, we beat Clay Guida, we meet Grudemacher. Okay, Jordan Levitt's an okay win back in 2021. Um, but is it? Jordan Levitt, can grapple, but we've seen Jordan Levitt just get absolutely smothered by Patty Pimlet. Just absolutely dominated. On the other hand, if we pull up, let's see here. Joaquim Silva lost to Jakar Close. Not great at this point in Close's career. Beats Clay Guida. Again, that's something that you see in common on both the records of a win over Clay Guida. Here's what we need to remember, right? He lost to Arman Saryukian back in 2023. Joaquim Silva had moments against Arman. Silva had Arman not necessarily in danger, but he had there were some questionable moments for Arman in that fight leading up to the finish. Joaquim Silva has skills. But Claudio Puelles has the grappling that he could fall back on. This is very close to a 50-50. I think, you could see that even reflected in the odds with a minus 15 Puelles, minus 105 Silva. I'm just not ever going to pick the jiu-jitsu guy. I'm not going to pick not just the jiu-jitsu guy. We're not talking an RDR jiu-jitsu guy. We're not talking that kind of jiu-jitsu guy. I'm not going to pick the roll for heel hook guy in the UFC in my picks. I'm going to pick the guy who can bang on the feet and who can hopefully stop a takedown or not get rolled on. We're not talking about Walter Walker, right? At heavyweight, he's the only guy who's doing it. I'm not going to pick, especially in a lightweight bout, I'm not going to pick the rolling for the heel hook guy. We've seen this story play out bunch of times. I think that Joaquim Silva is going to win. It's going to be very close. Maybe he has him hurt in moments. Maybe he finishes him. But I think it's probably more likely we're going to see one round where Puelles is able to get some control, maybe gets close on a couple of subs on Silva. But we're probably going to see Silva hopefully be able to smother the takedown. If he does a roll for his feet, stuff that, piece him up on the feet. Silva just has more tools, in my opinion. And I'm just not going to pick the jiu-jitsu nerd who rolls for ankles. You got to go Silva here. But again, very close to a 50-50 fight. Moving on to the prelim headliner, or I don't know, feature prelim bout. Jose Daniel Medina, Dusko Todorovic. What are we doing here? This is the product the UFC is putting out. I guess they're just trying to get all the stinkers out before the Paramount deal. I don't know. The fact that in 2025 Dusko Todorovic is even a featured bout on the prelims. He should be mid to bottom of any prelim. But not even that. The fact that Dusko Todorovic in 2025 is a minus 325 favorite against Jose Daniel Medina is crazy. Jose, the fact that Dusko Todorovic is a minus 325 favorite in 2025 is insane, let alone that he's a featured prelim bout. But there's a reason for this. Jose Daniel Medina should not be in the UFC. Jose Daniel Medina sucks. He absolutely sucks. He's in the UFC because his last finish was to Ateba Gautier. Why is he still in the UFC? He lost his Contender Series bout to Gadziasulov. He lost another fight to Zachary Reese. Why are we giving Jose Daniel Medina a fight? I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why Jose Daniel Medina is still in the fight. One, this is Noche. He's from Bolivia. Um, he's willing to take these terrible fights, but he is just another Latin guy with the chin who makes things scrappy. He's not good anywhere. He is a walking highlight reel for even someone as chalked as Dusko Todorovic, who, check that out, has also lost to Zachary Reese, who's also on the card. And on the card below him, on the card against Sedriques Dumas, Zachary Reese beat both of these guys and is on the card below them. What are we doing? Dusko Todorovic is going to win either unanimous decision or a round 2, round 1 KO TKO, although Medina's one redeeming quality is he has an okay chin. Moving on. That fight upsets me. Alexander Hernandez versus Diego Ferreira. Quick turnaround for Alexander Hernandez after flatlining Chase Hooper. Knocking out Chase Hooper, finishing Chase Hooper. Wants a quick turnaround, and you thought I was going to pick Alexander Hernandez for even a second. Nah. We riding with Diego Ferreira. Diego Ferreira. Any hardcore fan is riding with Diego Ferreira. The reason that Alexander Hernandez is a slight favorite is people riding high off of him finishing Chase Hooper. I mean, let's just go off their last 3 fights alone, right? Alexander Hernandez is riding a 3-fight win streak going into this, but his wins are Austin Hubbard, Kurt Hollabaugh, Chase Hooper. He lost a unanimous decision to Bill Algeo before that, and a split decision to Damon Jackson. Diego Ferreira has been fighting. His last loss is to Grant Dawson. Remember the name Grant Dawson. He's going to show up again in this video. But he beat Mateusz Rebecki. He beat Michael Johnson in 2023. I mean, are we honestly, even now, Return of the Unk, do we think that realistically, Alexander Hernandez, he might not beat Michael Johnson? I don't think he does. Uh, I don't. I just, you got to go Carlos Diego Ferreira. I think every hardcore fan that I've seen is going Carlos. It's not Carlos, but Diego Ferreira, just off strength of schedule, off the more well-roundedness. Alexander Hernandez had a great finish against Chase Hooper. He will be a journeyman in the UFC. He might even crack the rankings eventually. But we're just, again, he's not on the level of Diego Ferreira. I don't think he has as many tools. Maybe he has a decent takedown and he has a 1-2, a nice 1-2. I'm going Diego Ferreira. I'm I think most hardcore fans are pretty confident in picking Diego Ferreira off his skill set just over Alexander Hernandez. Moving on to the um, main card. Santiago Luna versus Quang Lee. This is the other fight that is about as close to 50-50 as you're going to get. The true 50-50 fight between Santiago Luna and Quang Lee. Santiago Luna, we have next to nothing on him. He is 6-0. Again, $1 million company, can't even get him a headshot, fighting in his home country. He's the tape we have from the regional scene is okay on Santiago Luna. He looks all right. Quang Lee also looks okay. This is very close again to a true 50-50. Everyone seems to be kind of split off what's going to happen here. Quang Lee coming off a win, a sub of Gaston Bolaños, which again, Gaston Bolaños is not bad. And Quang Lee was able to keep moving forward and get the sub in round 2. Lost to Long Zhao, lost to Chris Gutierrez. Not bad losses. Santiago Luna looks good. This is their guy in their home country, but he is making his debut. And just in general, I'm not going to pick a guy making their debut after fighting regional scene guys against a guy who's now had 3 outs in the UFC. I'm gonna go Quang Lee here just off experience. I think that maybe Santiago Luna has some octagon jitters, maybe making his debut in front of a crowd that's gonna be pulling for him. Um, and just the experience, I think Quang Lee will be able to maybe take some shots here and keep moving forward and win a gritty 29-28 decision. Not confident in that, but again, this is that 50-50 fight on the card. Yeah. Moving on. Kelvin. Every time I see Kelvin Gastelum's picture, it makes me laugh. I mean, can you imagine at 5'9", walking out, you walk up to your grandma and you go, you see that guy on the left? That's a professional athlete right there. That's what his body looks like. And you don't really see it until they're in the cage. I mean, this guy has it's not as noticeable here. No legs. Kelvin Gastelum has no legs, and he is built like a mini fridge up top. And he's fighting at middleweight. And he's the favorite. Because Dustin Stoltzfus kind of sucks. Dustin Stoltzfus has had moments. I mean, he beat Marco Andre Barrialt a couple fights ago. His last loss is to Ruzaboyev. But Kelvin Gastelum, I mean, his last fight against Joe Pyfer, Kelvin Gastelum showed one. He's got a hell of a chin. Hell of a chin when he's not cutting so much weight, when he can put the fork down. And there were moments where he gave Joe Pyfer some problems after a really bad start. And, he lost that fight, but he didn't look bad. And if Kelvin Gastelum if he is anything like what we thought Kelvin Gastelum was going to be when he was going to war with Israel Adesanya, when he knocked out Michael Bisping, um, then Kelvin Gastelum should easily win this fight. But again, I hate making this prediction because who knows? Kelvin Gastelum could go out on the town, think I'm fighting at 185, and go enjoy the, let's say, local cuisine, and then have an awful weight cut where he somehow, while still being obese, looks like death on the scale at 185. So I hate making this prediction before we see what he looks like at weigh-in. But again, again, this is Dustin Stoltzfus. The UFC is giving him a layup because they know Kelvin Gastelum has fans. They know that he should be able to make easy work of a guy like Dustin Stoltzfus. There's even an element of a little bit of lighter man skill that translates to his striking versus Dustin Stoltzfus. I don't see in shape, motivated Kelvin Gastelum coming in here losing to Dustin Stoltzfus. And it is it is the fight that you show your friends that don't watch the UFC and you go, look, that guy's winning. Because it's when you see it live, I want you all to do something when you watch this fight live. Look at Kelvin Gastelum's lower body and then eye him up to the upper body. He looks ridiculous. And that is a professional athlete, and that is a professional athlete who should win this weekend. I don't necessarily know if he gets the finish. I think if he does, it'll be a round two. We know Kelvin Gastelum kind of starts off reading his opponents a little bit, and I don't think he'll be in as much danger with that as he was with Joe Pyfer, as he's stepping in there with Dustin Stoltzfus. But maybe, again, I know I've been betting this a lot, maybe a round two KO TKO from Kelvin Gastelum, maybe even a round three, but pretty confident in at least him winning a unanimous decision. Moving on, Rafa Garcia versus Jared Gordon. Jared Gordon, rightfully so, the minus 245 favorite in this fight. You might look at those records, 21-7 and 17-4, and you might be tempted to take Rafa Garcia in this fight. Remind yourself before you do that, okay, Rafa Garcia lost to Grant Dawson, not bad. Grant Dawson is no slouch. There's no shame in losing to Grant Dawson, but he won. And if you go back and you watch it in 2023, he won a very he had trouble. He couldn't put away Clay Guida. He could not put away Clay Guida. And again, he took a decision to Vince Pichel. And if you're going to decision with Vince Pichel, there is absolutely no chance that you will ever be anything in that division if you cannot finish Vince Pichel. Jared Gordon, let me pull up Jared Gordon. Jared Gordon's career he's been on the, don't let his record deceive you. He has been on the receiving end of some of the worst decisions we've seen. He should have won the Nasrat Haqparast fight. Absolutely. He should have won the Paddy Pimblett fight. And Nasrat Haqparast is good. Beats Thiago Moises, but doesn't just beat Thiago Moises because that's not much these days. KOs him. TKOs him. KOs, TKOs Marco Madsen. All right, fine. No decision, no contest draw to Bobby Green, King Green. I think he was going to absolutely finish Green the longer that fight went on, if not for that headbutt from Green. Jared Gordon can be something in this division. He can be a legitimate contender. I think, in my opinion, if you just look at the strength of his schedule, the guys that he's been on the wrong side of the decision to, if you're a fan, Jared Gordon should have won a lot of the fights that he's lost. Jared Gordon should make easy work of Rafa Garcia. Rafa Garcia is another example, I think, of a Latin guy with a chin. But I don't see Rafa Garcia presenting any reasonable threat to Jared Gordon here. Moving on to the co-main event of Rob Font versus David Martinez from Cyberpunk. Rob Font coming in is only a minus 130 against a David Martinez here. David Martinez has had some decent decent showings on the Contender Series, winning a unanimous decision. He TKO'd Simon Oliveira there, but people forget, man. Rob Font. Rob Font. Rob Font has fought some killers. He beat Gene Matsumoto, and Gene Matsumoto is, as we've been seeing, has a lot of potential. Beats Kyler Phillips. He lost to Davidson Figueiredo and Corey Sandhagen, but he lost unanimous decisions. He lost a 5-rounder to Sandhagen. There's nothing wrong with that. Beats Adrian Yanez. Again, we can't go with David Martinez. You just can't. As a UFC fan, all the hardcores have been pointing out that some of the lines on some of these hometown guys are really messed up. David Martinez could be the next guy. We don't know. But I'm going to go with Rob Font. And I go back, watch David Martinez the way David Martinez fights. He has some power. He has some spring. He has knockout power. He's fast. But David Martinez fights so tense. His face does not change from this right here. David Martinez's face is like that the entire fight, if not angrier. And so I just think, I think if Rob Font works his jab, we know he has a great jab, and really starts frustrating him, we're going to see a one-sided Rob Font, y'all must have forgot, performance. Show these up-and-comers. I ain't done. I got a couple more in me. Rob Font kind of performance. The only thing we worry about a little bit, Rob Font getting caught. His chin sometimes is questionable. But again, it's held up against Gene Matsumoto, Kyler Phillips, Figueiredo, Sandhagen. Because everyone talks about, and you see all the clips of him getting stumbled backwards by Edson Barboza. But if Rob Font's chin holds up, which we have no reason at this point, given his last couple fights, to believe it can't, I think he works the jab. I think he shows David Martinez why, we're just feeding David Martinez too much. We got to stop doing this to contenders. We got to stop doing this to guys that we should be able to get excited about. We give them too much too early on. Let them take out some old guys. Let them work their way up. Why are we giving a guy who's coming off his UFC debut, Rob Font? Okay, why are we shooting him up the rankings too soon? I think Rob Font's experiments, I think he puts that experience, I think he puts that work on David Martinez this weekend. Maybe even a finish. Although David Martinez, from what we've seen, I think he frustrates Martinez to a 30-27 decision, I think, more than likely. All right, the main event, Diego Lopes versus Gene Silva. Now, these odds were, for a while, if you're a hardcore fan, you've been checking. Gene Silva was the favorite until last weekend happened. Of, both his teammates losing. And now everyone except him has a loss in the UFC. Right? All the fighting nerds have lost a little bit of their aura in the UFC. And Diego Lopes, I've gone back and forth on this a lot. I don't think that the odds reflect how close this fight should be, simply because of all the unknowns we have. Diego Lopes, I'm very tempted to just say, hey, I think Diego Lopes wins based off the same reasons I've been using for a lot of this card, which is Diego Lopes has been there. Diego Lopes has beat Brian Ortega. Diego Lopes has been in a 5-round championship fight with Volkanovski. He's rocked Volkanovski. He's put him in danger. He did have the one that everyone likes to point out on Diego Lopes is over 3 rounds. It was close with a very short notice Dan Ige, but again, that's a Dan Ige that didn't have to cut any weight. That's a Dan Ige that didn't, and Dan Ige is a tough out. At least before their gym started ruining these guys. That's a whole separate discussion to have Eric Nixick ruining some of these guys, turning them into sparring partners. But that's besides the point. I am tempted to go Diego Lopes here. As a fan, I want Gene Silva to win. We've seen Diego Lopes come short in the title fight. The fight that they should have made for a Noche is Diego Lopes, Yair Rodriguez. We don't get that. Yair I don't know what the circumstances were. I hope it's not that Yair wants to sit around and get another title fight because he does not deserve one. We do not need to see that. Upsets me. It just upsets me these guys sitting out. But I think that, after watching some of their fights, everyone's been pointing out, Gene Silva looks great. He's aura farming in there. He's playing around. He's taunting. He's making easy work of these guys. Bryce Mitchell, shucking off the takedowns. Bryce Mitchell's undersized, also. For featherweight. We've seen he's going to move down to bantam, or he did move down to bantamweight. So is that takedown defense going to hold up? There's a lot of unknowns, but I am going to go Gene Silva here. I am going to go Gene Silva here. I I think that Gene Silva, the way Diego Lopes fights, is he does a lot of crashing in. He likes to crash in, and it's almost like a lighter man's version of what you see JDM, Jack De La Maddalena, do. He'll crash in and show some decent boxing, and he has hands. Um, and he'll collide in. But I think Gene Silva can catch him here. I think that, Gene Silva is a guy we haven't seen his gas tank tested fully, not in a 5 rounder. We also haven't seen what happens when he can't finish a guy. Because, he may or may not finish Diego Lopes here. Volkanovski couldn't. Volkanovski has hands. But what was Volkanovski catching Lopes with? 1-2 down the pipe, catching him on those crash-ins a lot of the time. When Diego Lopes would crash in, Volkanovski would be able to catch him coming in. And I think that's something that is Gene Silva's specialty. And I think that Gene Silva can catch him. Gene Silva can also be hit. We've seen him get hit. Against Bagdasarian, he got hit a few times in those exchanges. But we're betting against things we haven't. If you pick Diego Lopes, you're betting against the things that we haven't seen. We've seen nothing but Gene Silva dominating his opponents in impressive fashion. And you may say they're all cans besides Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell's all right, all that kind of stuff. Gene Silva, Drew Dober went 3 rounds. Gene Silva's pop in his punches is still there. He was beating the shit out of Drew Dober in round 3 and opened up a cut so bad they had to stop the fight. Gene Silva's cardio hasn't been in question in 3 rounds. We don't know what it looks like over a 5 rounder if he can't find the finish because he's found the finish in so many of these fights. Gene Silva has pretty decent takedown defense. Maybe he goes for the ninja choke a little bit too much. We saw that. You see it in the Drew Dober fight. You see it used very effectively in the Bryce Mitchell fight. But he does have decent takedown defense. And Gene Silva has hands. Gene Silva has hands, and he has hands of stone. And I think that, especially given he's an underdog here, and given as a fan, I want to see Gene Silva fight for the title. I want to see Gene Silva fight more often. I'm going to go with Gene Silva here. Is this something that you should throw in your parlays? Probably not. I think it's another one of those fights that's closer than people think. A lot of people are throwing money on Diego Lopes because of the story of what's been happening to the fighting nerds when they take a step up in competition, those kinds of things. I'm going to go Gene Silva here. I'm going to say that I think he finds a finish within the first couple of rounds, like he has been. I think he can catch Diego Lopes crashing in. However, I will say this. I think that if you're looking at round 3, and even if Gene Silva's the heavy favorite, and he's been piecing up Diego Lopes the first round, 1, 2, maybe even a little bit of 3. I think if it's in any way close going into or going out of round 3, Diego Lopes is a very solid live bet. You take him as once the odds have shifted, and you bet him to be able to outgrit Gene Silva. I think that there could be cardio problems, but again, we're betting against the. Are we going to bet against the intangibles here? We don't know anything about Gene Silva. And whereas, you're going to bet against those things when you have a prospect making their short notice debut, I'm not going to bet against them when it's a guy like Gene Silva who has octagon time, who trains with elite level competitors who has been preparing for this fight. I'm going to go Gene Silva here. I think he finds the finish, and I think he locks as an underdog. Not confident in that. Again, this is more of one of those where the whole community is split almost down the middle. But yeah, I will be rooting for Gene Silva. I will be rooting for Gene Silva, and I will be rooting against Sedriques Dumas this weekend. Those are my two fights that I'm very excited to watch. Yeah, those are my predictions for Noche UFC, Diego Lopes versus Gene Silva. Again, bet responsibly, you know, and have a good time. And hopefully, I think this is the last card that is sort of on the weaker end. Uh, we do have a good main event. We have Rob Font, we have Kelvin Gastelum, but for the most part, a lot of these fights feel a little bit fillerish. Um, I think that going through after this month and moving forward in September, we're gonna see some really good fight cards coming up. So I'll see you guys later. Go follow my Twitter. It's linked in the description. Good luck this weekend.